How many reasons do you need to come up with before you take actions? When the storm unexpectedly hit, after the dust settled, seeing the mess of devastation, let's roll up our sleeves, pick up the burdens for others to fulfill the satisfaction and enjoyment. When the surroundings are clear, peace will resume. Hello, fellow humans. This is Lots of Hope. Welcome to this episode of The Living Journey, where we escape and explore a life in an alternate universe. Thank you for your support. Now, let's decompress. By any chance, Part 2. It was a week after the fiasco happened in Mr. Joe's restaurant. Life had gone back to normal. Although the restaurant closed, the neighbors with the planting trees and Mr. Joe's family went into hiding. Jen's brother put down a glove, took and destroyed the surveillance camera hard drive, and everyone who was in the restaurant agreed on the story that when the purity agents arrived and took the families, all of them dispersed and left for home. As for the empty cars that was left running until they ran out of gas, nobody knows what happened. Everyone was scared for the whole week. Scared that the investigators would be extra hard and persistent in finding out what happened. But the truth was, the authorities saw the purity agents as disposable incidents, just as the purity agents themselves saw Mr. Joe's family. They didn't even bother to send in tow trucks to pull the abandoned vehicles away. They left them in the parking lot to rot. Jen was especially uneasy about the days that had passed. Although Chance was living in the room with her brother, Chance barely had left any crumbs or evidence that he had ever existed. If it wasn't for how clean her brother's bedroom was for the first couple of days, she almost thought that she was crazy. On the night of the mandatory lasagna night, Jen chopped out the tomatoes, almost like she was chopping up onions. Jen's mother walked towards her and hugged her. They didn't say much, because the fact that Chance, the innocent being, was trapped in the space of nothingness hurt just a little too much to be spoken about. Jen didn't know what to do, trying to find the hope that Chance magically appeared from the backyard and smiled at the mother-daughter duo. But there was no Chance. Jen had been in the space of nothingness before. Chance rescued her from the purity agents not long before Chance disappeared, reappeared in the restaurant, and then finally completely disappeared. Jen's mother got hauled away by the brother. Jen's boyfriend had been naughty, took his game controller, and ran away as a joke. Jen wiped off her tears and resumed chopping up the tomatoes, moving the knife up and down, thinking about the scene that Chance had brought her into. The empty space. No color, not even black or white, just an endless void. The rhythmic chopping sound and the repetitive motion in her arms made her lose track of time, thinking about Chance, when and where he would be at the moment. Jen almost fell into a trance, almost as if she could see the innocent boy being trapped amongst holes that kept on expanding and merging, changing shapes while splitting into smaller holes or disappearing. Chance floated in the space of nothingness. How much Jen wanted to see his innocent smile. How much she wanted to hear him say that he was okay, safe and sound. But she knew he was unable to. The tear once again rolled down from her face. She saw Chance, scared of the holes. One that was right behind him merged with another one, creating a huge hole that would swallow Chance. But Chance didn't know. He couldn't see it. The hole was behind his back. "Chance, a hole behind you!" Jen shouted. But before Chance could look back and run away from the hole, he was swallowed by the merging hole. Jen panicked, thinking that Chance had disappeared into oblivion. Another hole reappeared, and Chance fell out of the hole, dropped onto the invisible ground, dripping wet and shivering. Jane wanted to call Chance over to rescue him, but the sharp knife that was moving with her hand slipped, cutting the tip of her fingers, and Jen was snapped out of the space of nothingness. Jane's father quickly rushed to the kitchen. Are you okay? Jane was confused. Her finger was cut, but thankfully, the wounds weren't deep. What? She didn't even realize that she was cut. Jesus, you cut yourself. Let me clean you first. Her father grabbed her hand and started to apply first aid after rinsing the fingers. You two, come help Jen, he shouted to Jen's brother and boyfriend. Jane just let her father take care of her in silence. She didn't even realize that her father was talking to her, and she didn't realize that her boyfriend was massaging her shoulders, trying to relax her tense muscles and nerves. Jane couldn't get a view of Chance's scared posture out of her head. She wasn't sure if the scene that she saw was real or just her hallucination, and it bothered her. Are you thinking about Chance? Chance's boyfriend asked. I feel bad that I wasn't there to protect you. Sitting outside of the house, in the backyard, enjoying the quietness and peacefulness after enjoying a wonderful meal, Jane leaned against him and quietly said, We couldn't do anything. None of us could. You shouldn't feel bad. I lost a friend and I couldn't have you get hurt for me again. Jane wanted to continue to tell him about the semi-hallucination and the semi-realistic visual that she got earlier. But since the fiasco at Mr. Joe's restaurant, everyone was tense. Jane didn't know how to bring the topic up. It was almost as if the people that she knew and aligned with had slowly lost hope. Mr. Joe's restaurant is a staple in town. It was generational, with different owners. First, it was a small Italian place, opened by an Italian grandma who sold her family recipes. According to Jen's father, it was where the lasagna recipe came from. He worked in the restaurant when he was a teen. The Italian grandma took care of him like he was one of her grandkids. She shared her family secret recipes with everyone that took care of her and her business before she closed the restaurant and then passed away. The next restaurant was opened by a local pastor, originally a soup kitchen that only opened on Sundays. When the town was experiencing difficulties, it became a food bank for the people in need. At the time, the factory shut down and the town experienced a short but painful rebirth. Thankfully, most of the people who were able to catch back on the new industries that had started and grew. The soup kitchen was closed after the traffic went down significantly. Before Mr. Joe's restaurant, the location was a pub. When the town started to develop a large amount of housing, it was the gathering place for the construction workers. The beer tap was bottomless, and the work hours matched the work and off schedule for them. But the developments slowed down, and the construction business slowly stopped. So did the flow of the beer tap. When the pub was about to go belly up, Mr. Joe took his hard-earned gardening money, appeared to the pub owner, bailed out the pub owner, and opened his own Mexican restaurant. Unlike all the others that had opened business on the same location, Mr. Joe's grand opening was less than congratulations. More of the resentment from the local factory workers turned the construction workers, hating on the restaurant. You can probably see where Jane got her outspoken personality from. When a bunch of the construction workers were bad-mouthing the restaurant, Jane's mother stood up to them, told them that they were being judgmental, and borderlining on bigotry directly to their faces. Later that evening, she gathered a couple of her remaining friends and their families to the restaurant to support the business. Jane got her mother's righteousness. She frequently got into troubles in school for helping others, although her father taught her to be more gentle and try to use her intelligence more. She was always rushing and was almost hard-headed, like Jane's father, being attracted by the outspokenness of Jane's mother. Jane's boyfriend was attracted to Jane due to an incident. They rescued a schoolmate after he was bullied on the school bus and was too afraid to take the bus, so he chose to walk to school. Jane walked with him to school. She taught him that he should stand up to the bullies and she would be there to support him. But only with Jane and the skinny boy. They were in the disadvantage just when they were going to be overwhelmed by force. Jane's boyfriend stood up. Although he was beaten and got bruised, Jane was able to escape with the skinny boy, and the skinny boy was able to learn the lesson to be brave. Funny enough, when the bullies saw him gaining the strength, they automatically backed down. Thinking about the memories, Jane smiled, not realizing that she was experiencing the memories in person. Overseeing the progression of history, she thought she was just leaning on her boyfriend's shoulder, relaxing and resting. But Chance's voice called on her. I'm still here, trying to find hope, but the holes are swallowing me more and more frequently. I'm fighting, but it's hard. I'm losing hope. Hearing the words, Jane was shocked awake. You disappeared, her boyfriend said to Jane. Jane took a deep breath, not realizing when or how her parents and her brother suddenly all appeared in the backyard. How? Jane asked, then realized that all the experiences and all the scenes were not hallucinations. Jane said to her father, I saw you. I went back in time. I saw the green Italian menu that you told me about. It was handwritten. Jane paused, thought about a small detail that was never mentioned in their conversations. The menu price was written with the symbol of Italian lira. Then it was crossed out to be replaced with the US dollar sign. With both parents' jaws dropped to the floor, Jane continued, and I heard and saw Chance. He is still out there. I saw him trapped. I will need to find him, guide him to the right hole, to return here. Do you know where he is now? Jane's brother asked. I'm not sure. I saw him earlier when I accidentally cut myself. Jane looked at her fingers. They were carefully wrapped by the father. I will go back. But not now. Jane's mother stopped her. Chance said he was trapped because he went back to the space of nothingness too many times. That's why he is not here now. You will need to wait. Jane's father nodded his head, knowing full well that if his wife is in the same situation, she would have rushed back to find Chance. But lucky for him, she had grown some patience since she gave birth to Jane and her brother. Since that night, Jane had grown extremely anxious, contemplating on finding plans to bring back her friend. She did her best to calm herself down, writing down scenarios that she might encounter when she re-enters the space of nothingness. She wrote in a notebook the time that she possibly needed to wait to return to the space of nothingness, based on the memory of how fast some of the holes disappeared and how much they could merge and split. when it would be the best time and the earliest time to return. She also listed all the possibilities and the possible situations to each of the possibilities. She was so distracted in classes that one of the teachers walked up to her, took her notes, and read the list of the gibberish out loud, making fun of her and warned her. Jane felt embarrassed, but she tried to stay focused because she knew she needed to rescue Chance before he ran out of hope. On the way back home, Jane was just sitting in the passenger seat, listening to the news report that more people all over the country had been rounded up and disappeared by the purity agents. Out of annoyance, Jane reached out her hand to turn off the radio, but her brother had reached out his hand first from the back seats, turned off the radio, and said, "I'm so done with them." "I heard about the notebook thing earlier." To change the topic, Jane's boyfriend said, and then told them that Jane's classmate, who was in Mr. Joe's restaurant that night, wanted to talk to her parents and wanted to come and support her when she thought she was ready to find Chance. Jane nodded her head and smiled. It was an odd sensation in Jane's heart. The news about the world exploding had been on the radio, the phone, the TV, all day, every day for hours and hours. She had seen them when she walked by the grocery store, heard alerts sent to her friends who lived hundreds of miles away, and it felt like a distance away. However, on the night when her brother ran back towards the restaurant, Jane stood in the road to block the vehicles. She heard her own brother screaming the sound from the social media clips. "They're here! Stay in, run, hide!" It broke her heart. Jane could feel the hope disappearing from her heart, creating a power vacuum, squeezing the tears out of her eyes. Jane's boyfriend reached out his hand, gently wiped the tear off her face, and said, "Don't rush, okay? I know you are brave, but I worry about you not strategizing enough. We can't have you get trapped with Chance. You are his last hope, and you are our last hope." Jane nodded her head, and her brother reached out, grabbed her shoulders, and said, "I wouldn't want to do all the chores around the house. That's your responsibility." He made everyone laugh. Jane looked at her boyfriend, found a gentle side of him that was never realized, being a cool and calm force behind her, holding her down, helping her to pace, while retaining the slim hope for all the best wishes. And then Jane looked at the rearview mirror, her brother putting his headphone back on, still a teenager, blossoming in testosterone, being proud and rebellious. Thank God he's funny and handsome, otherwise nobody would love you, Jane thought. What? Jane's brother took off his headphones and said. Jane's boyfriend replied, "Nobody said anything to you." Then he looked at Jane, seeing her face, expressing disbelief. They both realized Jane now could communicate with others with just her thoughts. Growing anxious like never before, Jane rushed to her room after getting back to the house, shouting at her brother on the way up the stairs, asking him to prepare for dinner. Slamming her door, she closed her eyes and kneeled before bed, holding her hands against her temples, like she was trying to communicate with the supernatural world. She repeatedly thought, "Chance, I'm coming to you. My dear friend, I'm coming to get you. I'm coming." Not sure how long time flew by, but when Jane woke up from the bedside, the sky had turned dark. Winter officially arrived. It wasn't even dinner time. The sun had gone on strike against the brutal winter. Jane was not sure if Chance heard her. She was exhausted and passed out hard, splashing cold water on her face, trying to look refreshed so she didn't get her parents worried. Looking into the mirror, she suddenly heard, "Don't come. Dangerous. Cold and hungry here. Don't come." Please don't come. Don't come. Chance's voice entered Jane's ear, and then followed by her parents and her brother's wheezing sound. They all heard it. Jane rushed down the stairs, and before she could speak, the phone in the pocket rang. It was her boyfriend. Then her parents' phone rang. Then her brother's phone rang. Basically, the whole town. Whoever had met Chance, all the people who were in the restaurant that night, heard the ever-wakening, seemingly last breath. We are coming. All people responded on the call. Within an hour, a spontaneous party gathered at Jane's house. Everyone brought their dinners and all the tomatoes from the town. Mr. Joe's family and the neighbors with the planting trees also came out of hiding and came to Jane's house. Jane took out her notebook. While reading the notes that she had drawn down, she ate a piece of the bread and a chunk of steak. When she felt ready and rested, she stood up and told everyone, "Okay, I'm starting." "Wait!" Mr. Joe stood out, handed a pair of cut-resistant gloves to Jane. "Your mother told me." Jane smiled, put on the gloves, and picked up the knife to start chopping the tomatoes. Under the watchful eyes of all the people that came to support her, people staring at her as if she was going to belt out like Celine Dion, Jane got a little stage fright, and her brother noticed, quietly said, "Guys, let's look down." Jane took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and started to chop the tomatoes away. With the sound of the metal slicing through the crisp and juicy tomato, hitting the knife edge on the wooden chopping board, the rhythm of repetition danced around the room, splashing the sweet and sour scent through the house, and brought Jane into the space of nothingness. Jane heard the sound of the knife drop, and a small amount of the sound from some of the people's disbelief. Jane opened her eyes, returned to the vast yet seemingly tight space, as if she was standing on the street in the middle of the night. Although there was no light at all, she could see the whole empty block. Not sure where she was, or where she should go to find Chance. She just walked towards one direction while calling Chance's name, but all she could hear back was silence. Nothing else existed here. Sound didn't travel through the air, yet she could walk and breathe. Thankfully, this scenario was planned in her notebook. Keep walking, sing a song, think about Chance, and I will get there. Jane walked as she thought about the time she was sitting in the back of the living room, reading her Jane Austen novels for the 10th time, being distracted by how her brother was protesting on how Chance just beat her brother's whole team of legendary pocket monsters with a team of adorable fox evolution families. That's cheating! Jane couldn't remember who her brother was complaining to at the time, but she saw a hole right in front of her, and she walked right in. In the living room, the game console controller floated in the air. She could see the silhouette of Chance, but her hand, that's still wearing the cut-resistant glove, just passed through the silhouette. Jane was disappointed, returned to the space of nothingness, and she utilized her plan in the notebook. Walk forward, create holes spaced apart, and only create holes in front of the previous one. Thankfully, the plan was working. Although the world has no direction, there is somehow an order. Jane thought about the night at the restaurant, staked outside of the restaurant where the cars were parked. She waited for Chance to approach the last couple of the purity agents. Jane hopped out, trying to grab onto Chance as he removed each and every purity agent. But Chance was fast, leaving just the neighbor with the planting trees, handcuffed in the back of one car, witnessing the surreal scene of Jen dancing around, trying to touch the disappearing purity agents like she was a clumsy carnival goer playing on the whack-a-mole machine, failing miserably. Goodbye, Jen. Take care of yourself. Jane heard Chance saying his farewell, knowing his fate of entrapment, took and disappeared the last purity agent. Fuck! Jane shouted loudly in frustration, regretting that she never practiced the sports. With more and more holes created, she looked back to the chain of holes that she had created. Some of them started merging, and the order that she tried to maintain had started to shift and break down. Thinking about the notebook, a line appeared in her mind. Remain calm, stay hopeful. Where are you? Jane thought, with a slight desperation and complete frustration. It had been exhausting. Her throat was tired and dry. She had initially cursed loudly in front of Mr. Joe's restaurant and kept on calling Chance's name in the space of nothingness. Suddenly, Jane heard a faint response from Chance. You won't find me there. Go back. It's too far gone. Remain calm. Stay hopeful. Jane heard Chance from the inside of her and thought, hoping Chance would also hear her from the inside. Touching her chest, trying to breathe herself back to life, she realized that her heart was hollow. The hand that was wearing the cut-resistant glove pierced right through her chest, as if she was trying to touch the silhouette that was playing the Pocket Monster game on the couch. Chance was swallowed by the hopelessness. Jane realized, and then her body dropped, free falling into a bottomless pit as her face stopped, seeing her past, the world history displayed around her, showing her the individual who did nothing, choosing to ignore the moment, and became complicit in each of the small moments. As Jane got thrown deeper and deeper into the hole of hopelessness, she could feel herself getting closer and closer to Chance. I'm coming for you. I'm coming to get you. Don't give up. When Jane once again resumed her conscious control, she was laying in her bed, fidgeting with the rocks that Chance gifted her, listening to a short story fictional podcast with her brother sitting beside her bed on his phone, swiping away on the social media app, with her boyfriend doing his homework, distracted by the podcast. Jane remembered the day. Chance was laying on the opposite side of the bed, listening to the podcast, enjoying the fictional story, while watching on her brother's phone, laughing periodically at the funny memes. It all felt so chill and relaxing. Jane wiggled her toes, tickled Chance's shoulder, and said, I know the world is in a messy situation. I want to stay with you. Relax, wait for you to recharge, and we will go back home and fight for a better future together, okay? Chance nodded his head, smiled, and turned back to her brother's phone, continued to listen to the hopeful stories on the podcast, and watched the funny memes. Jane, can you help me with this question? Jane's boyfriend called. She remembered which question it was. She could have just recited the question, answering the question right then and there. But she sat up, walked to the desk, touched his back, and patiently explained to him how to solve the tricky math equation. Kids, dinner! Jane's mother shouted. Mr. Joe only sent 4 tamales. You got to call dibs. With that, everyone rushed out of the bedroom door. Everyone rushed against each other, everyone pushing against each other, trying to get to the first spot to catch the chance of getting the extra food, making sure that they don't miss out, even though everyone knows that no matter who lost the game of musical chairs, the spots for enjoying the delicious food is always shared. I guess it's just the way humans being playful and competitive with their loved ones. At the end of the dinner, after eating the Italian lasagna from a family recipe that was passed down through the generations, then shared to the chosen family, and the Mexican tamale, made and shared by a neighbor, made from another neighbor's tree, Chance leaned back against the chair. Bro, you sound like a pregnant woman, Jane's brother joked. Said by a virgin, Chance made a perfect comeback, and everyone laughed. Jane's brother tried to explain that he was going to ask his crush out, and then soon he wouldn't be a virgin. Jen knew that he would get his heart broken because the girl would reject him, but she didn't say anything. She looked over to Chase, saw him smiling, thinking about the exact moment when Jen's brother cried about his crush being more interested in his best friend, not him. Jen and Chase laughed, interrupting Jen's father's sex education on the dinner table. Wear a condom and ask for permission. No means no. While Jen and Chase made an ill sound, Jen's boyfriend said, Sir, teach your daughter that. And Jen's mother gasped in disbelief. I think I'm ready to go. Chance took a deep breath, smiled at Jen with peace and love. Go where? The mother asked. Nowhere. We will be home in no time. Jen reached out to Chance, held onto his hand that was returning to warmth. With the family saying, okay, Jen and Chase returned to the space of nothingness. With the lingering holes that was created by Chance crushed into the holes that Jen created, messed up the order that was intentionally created by Jen. Chance squeezed Jen's gloved hand. As Jen's hand turned sweaty, both of them got nervous. We will strategize, they both said in their mind. Don't be hot-headed, they reminded each other, oddly facing the possibilities of forever trapped in the timelessness and boringness. Sometimes even danger. With a friend by each other's side, there is a comical effect on whatever each other said. So they laughed. Facing the endless possibilities behind the holes, if they stepped into the wrong hole, there would be a possibility of jumping into the time and space, realizing the danger inside, fighting the way back into the space of nothingness, then creating more holes that makes the dangerous situation even more confusing. Not to mention that some holes emerge, some holes split, some holes disappear, creating new possibilities as the non-existing time goes by. Holding onto the gloves, Chance felt the texture of the textile. Chance loosened his grip on Jen, rubbed his fingers in front of his nose. It was the slight scent of the tomato juice that slipped between the knitted fibers. Like a puppy, Chance grabbed Jen's hand again and sniffed around all the holes in the space carefully. Although Chance had enjoyed many lasagnas and other tomato-based dinners, there were only a handful of times that Jen and Chance traveled through the holes that could be related with the scent. Realizing the scent particles could travel through the holes, they locked down a handful of targets of holes. But it was still too risky to try them one after another. The scented holes might accumulate, and for sure would multiply. So Jane suddenly thought, since the smell would travel through, could the sound or thoughts travel through? Without even saying anything, Chance replied to Jen telepathically Do you want to shout? Or do you want me to? Together. Jane nodded her head and shouted loudly to the roomful of people in her house. But Chance didn't shout. He couldn't. His stomach was too full from Mr. Joe's tamale and Jane's family lasagna. So he burped. Ew! Jane was disgusted and laughed. The laughter traveled through layers and layers of dimensions, like Jane's house was suddenly installed with spatial audio speakers. Everyone in the room screamed, "Oh my god, I heard that!" And the screams traveled through the hole and were received by Jen and Chance's ears. That hole! Jen and Chance pointed to the same hole, which was fragranced with the delicious tomato juice and the roomful of food, not to mention the sound of anxious but cheerful people screaming, "Here! Can you hear us? Here!" Staring at the hole before them, they held onto each other's hand tighter than ever. "Thank you for coming to save me from the hopelessness," Chance told Jen. And Jen just nodded her head and replied, "Any fucking time." Then they jumped into the hole and returned to the current time in the house before the piles and piles, buckets and buckets of chopped and fresh tomatoes. With a thunderous applause, the friends were back together, back in the safety and security. They hugged, hugged, and hugged. Like a group of penguins spinning in a circle, trying to keep the warmth of each other on the harsh, icy terrain. But the peaceful and tearful scene was paused by a loud blaring sirens, and the sound of a couple of the vehicles stopped at the front lawn. It was the purity agents, as the sound of neighbors screaming, "They're here, stay inside!" broke out. To my surprise, without hesitation, Jen's parents didn't stay inside, followed by Jen, her brother, and her boyfriend. Then more and more of the town's natives, they walked out of the front door, one by one, shielding the targeted friends and the neighbors behind their chain-linked fences. Suddenly, the call and screams changed. "Come out! Come out! All of us! There are more of us than they are!" That's all for this episode of The Living Journey. I truly am grateful for your time. Feel free to leave your reviews. Please like, follow, or subscribe. Do share this show so we can grow together. Lots of hope. Signing out.